We'll kind of get started first with a thank you to both Rudy and Thomas for being here this early and kind of being willing to participate in some education for everybody. So thank you, guys.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
A little bit about Rudy. So Rudy is the head men's and women's coach at Texas A&M International in Laredo, Texas. One of the unique things also about Rudy is he's also the director of instruction at the Golf Performance Center at Laredo Country Club. So he wears both hats, daily. Rudy, some of the things Rudy's done. Rudy was Harvey Penick Teacher of the Year, as well as Junior Development Award winner at the chapter level. This last year, Rudy was awarded the STPGA section Harvey Penick Teacher of the Year, listed as best in state by Golf Digest. 2017, he was the Heartland Conference Men's Coach of the Year. And I think one of the cool things that everybody's if you ever have a chance to hang out with Rudy, is he wants to educate himself. He tries to make sure that he's putting himself into places and situations so that he can learn. Not only does that help his a business as a director of instruction, but it obviously has a big role in his success and helping both men's and women's team at Texas A&M International. They've done some great things while he's been there, and they're still on the way up. So a little bit about Thomas. Thomas is director of golf for also both men's and women's teams at St. Mary's University in San Antonio. I'm kind of actually impressed that both of you guys, I don't know that all college coaches have necessarily come from instructional background. So Thomas also has a very big instructional background, being an instructor at various places such as Alamo City Golf Trail, Joe Caruso Golf Academy, Shady Oaks Golf Club, and then First Tee of San Antonio. Some of his coaching achievements are three-time national championship appearance, two-time Heartland Conference champion. He's coached 12 All-Americans, and then another impressive one here, 17 All-American Scholar athletes. And then a little bit about his kind of playing background is he's originally from, Ireland, seeing that he was on the Irish national team. So today's topic is player communication. We were supposed to have Dr. Lindsay Mitchell on. Unfortunately, she had a professional emergency that she had to attend. So unfortunately, Rudy and Thomas, you guys get to deal with me now. So player communication. So it's a big phrase that can mean a lot of things. And I'll just let Rudy kind of talk about what he thinks player communication means, as well as Thomas.
Awesome. Well, once again, guys, thank you for getting on the call. I think it's like, 6:05 here. So I'm just getting going with some coffee, but see if I can get my thoughts together and throw a few little things that you might be able to use. And also thank you, Thomas, man, for doing this. I saw you working hard on the course yesterday, and it's tough to get up early. He's got a little later tee time than we do, so he's probably a little upset with me to get him so early. But no, he loves to have chats. We have many chats, and I'm really appreciative of you being here and doing this for us. Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
Well, player communication. Alan and I were trying to figure out, what to talk about. We've had some great presenters on here, different topics from technology to swing mechanics to, some of these colleagues of ours, professionals that we've had in our section come on these things have been great. So we thought about player communication. We thought about pre-tournament. We talked about during and post. So we broke it down for no particular reason, those three. I think that's kind of how it shakes out for me anyways. But so interesting. It's an interesting dynamic when we have college players and then we have kids at our club or top amateurs at our club or mini tour players that we may work with. So I'll start with the college level. I think we're dealing with interesting people. They're young. They're easily very distracted. And these are probably the kids that you taught, at your club, and they're now playing D1, D2 golf. And and I'm sure they call you guys, and I'm sure they come home for breaks and they want to fix things. And I think we're managers of people in that arena, in that environment. So I personally have 16 kids, 8 men, 8 women, typically, that I have to somewhat figure out, and see how my personality also connects with these kids as well. So I approach each kid differently. It takes a lot of organization to do that. But the one thing that helps, guys, is a common language. So briefly, in my case, I have a little system that I call the bank system. So each kid on my team has 4 banks. They have the technical, they have the mental, they have the physical, and they have the strategic, or tactical, some people call it. So with those 4 banks, I really just try to get them to have daily deposits in those banks versus withdrawals. So if a kid takes 3 days off and, a little too much social time, then they probably had some withdrawals, 3 days in a row, and their banks are being depleted. So we strive to keep those banks at 100%, all 4 of them. And that's my language with them. That's our common communication. At the end of the weeks, team meetings, sometimes they're individualized. Like, how are your banks doing? Show me what you got. Some people, you start seeing how kids organize this stuff. Some of them pull out a laptop and have spreadsheets, and some of them have a little napkin. Some of them just verbalize it. So you have to understand where all these kids are coming from and what they like to do. And I think that's what I've learned in the coaching arena, and I've stuck with it because it's made me a better teacher at my club. When I was missing that. I was missing the human component. I was just, I recall 6-7 years ago being at the club and just teaching swing mechanics and making people swing better and hoping that would lead to lower scores. And I made my mistakes. So when I decided to help out the local university and hopefully not ruin the university program back then, I got in there and I learned. It was just amazing how much I learned, and it rounded me off as an instructor. Pre-tournament, my communication is usually on preparation. I hope that they prepared well. I hope the game plan, the preparation plan, the work we do at home is what I communicate with them, and how we're going to apply that to the environment we're about to go to. And so it's more of their preparation for where we're headed are my discussions. I keep it at that. I do a quick check on their lives, the balance, are they struggling in classes, boyfriend, girlfriend problems. I kind of have some conversations, make sure they're okay and they're comfortable and their environment's stable and balanced. And that's the kids at my club, and that's the kids on the team. And then it just shifts back to preparation, what we do at home. I feel like if I have to get to a golf tournament, we got to do coaching there. We didn't prepare properly. And that's a big thing that Thomas and I talk about a lot. And we do all our coaching at home. We're not out there, trying to make some miracles happen out there during the competition. So during is for me is emotional and mental bank work, making sure that we're getting sleep, making sure our nutrition is as good as we can get it with our budgets and stuff. We're not exactly walking into Whole Foods and picking the best food out there, but we're trying to figure all that stuff out in our physical bank. Our mental bank during the events is more about having a little bit of fun, having a little bit of balance. I know Thomas does some things that I like to do as well, like go on hikes and do things like that and have some team bonding stuff out there, not really talk about golf too much during the events. And then once the golf tournament gets started, there is adjustments and there is some things that have to be done from the coaching standpoint, but it's not a major thing that might turn things around for the worse or anything like that. So, also at events, it's a lot of strategic and tactical. We have our information that we got for the course. We know what we want to do in certain situations, certain holes, how we want to kind of approach the golf course. Look at the environment a lot. The environmentals are really important to me. And I think what we're trying to do out there is make less bogeys and doubles. That's really important to me. Not make the mistakes from lack of preparation on my part, on their part, and and if there are mistakes, it's just chalk it up to that golf. It's just golf sometimes. But we try our best to be as organized as possible. Do our work at home, get to the tournaments, have some balance, have some fun, really get a game plan for the golf course and keep our talks and our communication to that. Post is a little different. In years past, I've done the decade system where we have strokes gained, some metrics, some data and now we kind of have our own way of spun off a little bit on that and have our own way of looking at data post in our meetings, individualized, highly individualized. And again, back to our common language, the 4 banks. I noticed your last 6 holes were pretty loose out there. Well, coach, I was really tired. I didn't sleep well during the week. I think that's something I can do better. And they're writing stuff down. They're just going back and looking at things that affected their performance. It's never negative. We try not to make it negative. I'm not one of those guys that's like, man, you shot an 80 in the final round. That's terrible. You need to go call your coach. It's just very well balanced, very well data driven, and our common language of the 4 banks, the technical, the physical, the mental, and the tactical. And that's where we go off on rabbit holes and just kind of talk and adjust some adjustments to ensure that our next event is, get right back to the preparation aspect of it. In a nutshell, that's kind of what I do. The bank system, those 4 banks that I like to have at 100%, that applies to my kids at our club as well. So it's a common language that I share with both college players and even the top amateur adult club member. We all know what we're talking about, and I think that's important. I'd love to hear some thoughts on Thomas's process, and shoot it over to him. Thanks for listening to all that.
I swear we haven't prepared this, but this is so Rudy and I do communicate a lot at tournaments. There's a lot of I kind of liken them to little brainstorming sessions. I definitely have my notes out whenever I have time with Rudy. So thank you all for having me on. This is a treat for me whenever I get to surround myself with like-minded people wanting to just figure out what we're doing, what this whole thing is, and trying to get better and learn as much from each other. I'm all in. So this is a treat for me. So and thanks, Rudy, for inviting me. This is a little creepy because I was really listening to Rudy there, and this was not planned, but it's a very, very similar model that I try. And I absolutely don't claim to know it all or be anywhere near perfect, but I've learned from making mistakes, and I think that's one of my greatest assets. And I think it's actually one of my program's greatest assets is we screw up all the time, and we talk about it. We communicate about it, and that is very much a huge tenet of the program. Like Rudy was saying, he has a system, his bank system. We've developed a model that I like to call 101. So we have kids in the academic world that are, studying all day, every day. And I kind of stole that academic phrase 101. So obviously if they have a 101 class, it's the foundational elements, the fundamentals. And that's, as a program, that's what we do. So I try and keep it as simple as possible, while recognizing that none of this stuff that we do is simple. It's very complex. It's human beings, it's living organisms, it's all of the above. And the game alone is enough to blow your mind. So it can get extremely overwhelming. So that's kind of really where I feel my role is to look at all of the complexities and figure out how can we dumb this down, for a lack of a better term. So, but that's a challenge. It's a real big challenge, especially with this new generation that we have. We have a generation that has grown up with the iPhone, and they demand every piece of information in 1.1 second, and that's tough. Especially when we've got some information, we've got some guidance, we've got some knowledge that we'd like to impart, and I have a rule, or I have a 30-second rule, and if I don't get the core of my message over to one of my kids in 30 seconds, I've lost them already. I've done a poor job. And that is extremely, extremely difficult. And that's where I'll actually steal again a little bit from Rudy in terms of my own kind of evolution. I played national team, played college golf. I played pro for a few years and then opened up my instruction business and now college coaching. But it's interesting that when I was playing, I went deep dive into all the mechanics, went to this coach, this technical coach, all of that stuff, and two-dimensional, some three-dimensional stuff, and very much technique. And then when I started instructing, I recognized that, well, for a start, nobody has the technique that I had. So I needed to learn more than one technique. So that was a journey in and of itself. And then the college coaching comes along. And just like Rudy said, these are real human beings with real lives and stories on their back. And that is absolutely required of us to know that. It is demanded of us to know all of the story behind that kid, to know, okay, there's something behind you. This is not just a left wrist flexion coming into impact delivery and all of this stuff. That there's so much more to it, and it's frightening. And I'm personally on a big journey with communication. So this whole thing's a little interesting timing wise, but I'm demanding of myself that communication be the delivery system. So if you want to talk about the experience, the knowledge, any kind of data is the science of it all. The communication is the delivery system. That's the art of it. And it's constantly moving. I have 14 human beings in front of me every day. And we may have a big picture. We may want to, maybe based on our stats last week or observations from last tournament, let's say distance wedges we've noted have been poor. I could very well have 14 different ways of doing that. And it's organized chaos, but it's a real challenge. And what I've also learned is that I cannot have a one size fits all. And timing wise, it's an absolutely horrendous model, but it has to be that way because they are humans and you have to treat the human first. I have a few key words with the communication. It has to be absolutely wholly transparent. It has to be open and honest and explicit. But for me, the greatest challenge is it has to be relentless. And what I mean by that is the Friday Night Lights inspirational speech and having people go out there and all of this stuff. It's actually not reality. That's not how it works. We can't say one thing and expect a kid or anybody to go away with I know everything, I've got it, I understand. That's not how it works. The Friday Night Lights reality is it's thousands and thousands of 10-second chats, 20-second chats, 2-minute chats. It's just absolutely relentless. And that's where the communication really ties in with relationship. Because the more communication you have, the closer you become with a player. And then when you do impart some knowledge, there's some respect there. They're listening now, right? And that's a big, big piece of it. So kind of going into what Rudy asked me was pre, during, and post. So much like with Rudy, we do the work at home. So we have a lot of principles that we talk about at home. We put ourselves in different parameters and different constraints with practice in certain different scenarios. And we talk about it at length. So the very clear dumbed down model is we work at home and then I let them play at a tournament. And we have a lot of written down principles that are basically conditional. So if A, then B situations from a strategic standpoint, so that I know when we go to a tournament, they have preset plans. And the idea of that is that we can keep the emotion out of it. I often feel like if we're making decisions in game time with emotions involved, I don't like the road that we're going down. But if we have preset principles before we even get to the tournament, so yesterday was a practice round, that's where we come up with these conditions. You know, we read the lies, we read all of the possible scenarios, if A, then B. So hopefully they went to bed last night, waking up this morning, knowing that if I'm in certain situations today, I know what I'm going to do. And when you do that away from the course, there's no emotions, and our decision making is much more productive that way. With these principles, it's difficult because, like I keep joking to them, I have to talk to them in a TikTok world. And for those that are not familiar, I'm not familiar, but I know that they talk about it and laugh about it all day. But it's 5 second, it's 10-second video clips, and that's how they're conditioned. And this is not a bad thing at all. The adaptation is me, not them. This is their world. I have to speak to them. So a lot of the stuff that we do is trying to translate my language, which is the boring old bald man language, into catchy kind of artwork or little clips. And funny enough, on the plane the other day, I was actually using 3 of the girls to try and help me. How do I transition some words to video so that I can really get that message to them as fast as possible? It's one thing if I had hypothetical gold knowledge in my brain, that's great, good for me, right? But if I can't get that into their brains, then I'm useless. I'm a terrible golf coach. So in order for me to get it from me to them, I have to speak their language, not mine. And that's the fascinating evolution that I've had is learning that it's human first. And in order for that to happen, I have to understand them. And it's very, very, very challenging. Also, with that pre-piece, in order for some buy-in, I really very strongly encourage collaboration. And sometimes I may have an end goal that I really want to get to, but I involve them in the process. I collaborate, I ask questions. Now, sometimes I may disagree with their opinion, but I want them to give them the space to have an opinion so that they have some kind of involvement in it. If they're veering off path with the messaging, I'll find a way to guide them back on track to where we kind of get to that place to where I would like to be, but also where they feel they need to be as well. So, and that's the delivery system, right? That's the communication piece. So I wanted to focus on that primarily, honestly, the pre-piece, because that is where the work gets done. And then transitioning over to the during, I personally don't do anything when they play. So last night I did my probably 10-minute speech as I dropped them off to go get some rest and recovery. Tell them my job now. I've prepared you. If it's good enough, great. If it's not, great. Let's get home and learn about it. But I'm going to stay out of your way until you tell me otherwise. And never have we played a tournament to where I've completely stayed out of their way. But we've come close at times, and it's always the best tournaments that we've played. I never want them to need me. If they ever need me at a golf tournament, I've done a really, really bad job. Obviously there's that cliche to where the business model of I want to make myself obsolete. That really is true, right? And we're very vocal with that. So this morning when I drive them over there, we'll go to the course, we'll get out of the car, and I'll tell them, hey, I'll be around, but you don't need me. And oftentimes within that model, once we have kids for a year, 2 years, 3 years, they fully recognize that. And most of the time they're just bored during a tournament because, the monotony of poking it down there, hitting it in play, hitting a bunch of greens and, hitting a ton of 2-putts, maybe 1 or 2 drops in. The golf could be really good. Golf can be boring. And sometimes they just want somebody to talk to. That's the extent of my coaching at a golf tournament. We do the work at home, and then they play on the road. And then post, we have recovery days the next day after a tournament. So they're not allowed to touch a club. They're not allowed to work out, but they do come in and we debrief. And they dictate the debrief. This is not a me bringing out my notes and telling them I saw X, Y, and Z. What did you do on this hole? There are certainly elements of that, but they dictate the conversation. So I get their feedback first. I listen to them, and then I share my thoughts on that. And like I said, once kids are here for an extended period, we kind of start talking the same language, and we kind of see the same thing. So it turns into a really, really cool conversation. And then stats, right? We use a little bit of data as well, but we're informed by the data. I like to think that we're not driven by so the data does not lead us. It's just a nice measurement tool for us to utilize some of our own personal feedback. So that's in a nutshell how we do it. This is an incredibly complex game. Life is ridiculously complex, but hopefully my role with them is that we can dumb it down a little bit and try and get down to the fundamentals of things. And yeah, so that's kind of in a nutshell what we do here at St. Mary's.
Well, I appreciate that. That's pretty awesome. And yeah, I think one of the things that for those that get to hang around coaches like Thomas and Rudy is I think a lot of them have that same sentiment when it comes to if we have to do all of our work when we're at a golf tournament, we're probably not going to perform at the level that we want to. To that extent, I'll even take it farther. It always surprises me how much we see coaches at elite events. And I think even though we see all these coaches, even out on PGA Tour, LPGA Tour, I think even they have that same sentiment that you guys do. They're there more for a support role, kind of like you guys are at a golf tournament, maybe kind of a reminder role, maybe to recognize this or that. But if it's the real true, hey, you need to do this, feel that, I need to see this, see that, that's probably the wrong time and place. So what I'm kind of would be excited to hear is what does that look like when y'all are home with your teams? What does that training, that constraint kind of system look like so that you do feel like your players are showing up whenever y'all get on the bus or the plane or wherever you're going, that you're prepared when you do that versus still having to do all that work when you're there? So what does it look like when you're home? What's a training week look like?
You want to take that, Rudy, or me?
You take it first, man.
Okay, so I'm writing some things down here. So we do a lot. We do a lot, so much so that about a month ago at the beginning of this semester, I tweaked our schedule during the week a little bit because I noticed that Fridays were absolutely hideous for productivity, and they were absolutely exhausted and fried every single Friday. And they were fearful of coming to me, which is unfortunate, but fearful of coming to me to say that. But fortunately, I noticed it, and so we've tweaked our Fridays a little bit. We've kind of made them much more less intense, a little bit relaxed half days, because we've probably been pushing them too hard. But so what we do every Saturday, I send out the upcoming week schedule, and it's a little vague, little overview, but it's just so I can communicate some transparency of kind of what to expect this upcoming week. And typically Mondays and Tuesdays are going to be a kind of the technical, get our drills, get our ball counts in, and get to work on some of those things. And then Wednesday, Thursdays, we absolutely play. And like I said, Friday, we kind of scale it down a little bit, and then we start traveling on the Sunday and Saturday. So I send out a very vague overview schedule on the weekend prior, just so they have it in their headspace. Like I said, this generation absolutely demands the information, so I need to be upfront with them. And then about 9 a.m. every morning, I send out a much more specific plan for that day. And when it comes to scheduling, the language kind of changes a little bit, where every day we talk about environment. Obviously, it's a kind of a buzzword and whatnot, but it means a lot to us in the program. So I'm personally not smart enough to know how you win a national championship. I've never done it. Fortunately, I've been able to go to a few championships, but I don't know what that means. I don't know what I learned from that in terms of how I make that happen. That's not my intellect. I don't know. I can't even look at a whole week and know what to do. But what I can do is collectively with the kids is we can control today. So environmentally, like I said, we do our 101. So we dumb it down. We location, time, weather, and then we start talking about the specifics of what we want to do that day. And it's very much a collaboration, so much so that we journal. So I have the kids journal twice a day. One of them is pre-practice and one of them is post. So the pre one I call prep, and then the post one we call reflect. So once I send out that 9 a.m. note of what we kind of want to do today, here's the parameters, here's the constraints. They have from about 9 a.m. to about 2 p.m. to kind of think in their brain within those constraints what they want to do as an individual. So that's where the balance of my, for lack of a better term, my kind of dictatorial guidance comes in with their autonomous piece, and it's a constant balance. So there's a real collaborative event there. And then it's actually really cool. And this is something we haven't been doing for a whole long time, but I get a chance to look at their journals. So it's just an online, it's a fancy app that they like. But by the time I get to go to practice, I have had a brief look at their intents for the day. And then it's really cool when I show up that, we may have a handful or so there before me and they're doing it, so they're holding themselves accountable to themselves. They're holding themselves accountable to me and the rest of their teammates. And what they journaled, what they said they wanted to do for the day, it pretty explicitly, actually, they're doing it. So it's really cool. And then at the end of the day, by the time they go to bed, they have to write their reflection. So that's I did this good today. I didn't do this well today. I kind of learned something from this. Maybe there's a conversation back and forth. And then tomorrow, I want to take something into that. Another thing that we do is this is very much the human piece. So they fulfill a wellness report, and it takes like 10 seconds. It's just a very simple survey, 3 questions. One is about sleep, one is about their mental welfare, and one is about physically how they feel. So it's just a 1 through 5. 1 is good, and 5 is you're feeling terrible. And it gives me a color-coded report. And the reason for that is giving me information about the human. So if I hypothetically see somebody at practice and their productivity is a little underwhelming, I might have a quick look at the report. There might be some information there related to that. They might have had a crappy sleep. They might be stressed or anxious about something, right? And I have to know that, because if I'm going to drill into them about some kind of principle or whatnot, about whether it be mechanics or strategy or whatnot, if they're just having a crappy day, then I most definitely need to take that on board and take it easy. And this kind of really very definitely goes along with the relentless piece of it. So it's not there's never a 4-hour meeting, everybody sit down and we're going to go A to Z of whatever. It's just relentless, 10 seconds here, 20 seconds here. It's just constant poking. It's back and forth all day, every day. And so that's it. And it's very much constrained to one day. So I control today, and then we bookend it, and then we go to tomorrow. And I'll end with the thing that we talk about a lot is by the end of the season, we hope that we have a lot of good todays. And that's all that we can, aggregation, right? So let's have a good today, and let's go have a good today tomorrow, and then let's add them up. And if it turns into something, then great, right? So that's kind of, it's just relentless on one day at a time.
Give us one of your favorite, one or two constraints that you like using, either whether it be from a physical technical standpoint, performance standpoint, or whether it be combining it with mental. So what are one or two that you tend to kind of use a lot because they get their whatever?
Yeah. So, I mean, we have some favorite drills, right? But I don't know if this is a favorite, but it's a good story. But this was a few years ago. If the kids were here, they would tell me or tell you that they hated it, but it was actually amazing. But so we were looking at stats, and over a period of time, our bunker stats, our greenside bunker stats, not necessarily up and downs, not necessarily our proximity from bunkers. Our proficiency from the bunker was actually pretty good, but the frequency of going in bunkers was astronomical, and it was disturbingly so. So we had some conversations, and we were talking about some approach strategy and all of this stuff, and I thought we were doing great stuff, and none of our numbers changed. We kept hitting in the bunker, greenside bunkers constantly, and so I got to a point of, okay, I'm gonna build something on a Wednesday or a Thursday. So it's actually a Thursday, and I only did it for 9 holes because I knew it was kind of going to be painful. But so we set up a game on course where we had to. It was a point system, and I'm going to brutalize it because it was a few years ago, so I can't remember the specifics of it. But essentially, they had to hit a bunker shot, a greenside bunker shot on every hole, and play out from that spot, and then compare to a putt or a chip the same distance on another side of the green, and they had to come up with a scoring average of 2 players, so to speak. And the scoring, I mean, it was brutal. I think the best score. So effectively, what I'm saying is, over the 9 holes, they were in the bunker 9 times. And I don't know, that's a pretty bad way to try and score, is keep going in the bunker. And we had some really awful pins that day too. So I think the best score was 39, maybe. It was brutal. And they were complaining. There was a bunch of whining and moaning all day. And then we had a chat, and I let them speak. And they, it started aggressive. And then as they kind of started listening to each other, and I said no word, and recognized, well, he's probably trying to achieve something here. There's probably some kind of point, right? And they recognized or remembered when we were talking about the frequency of going in the sand and all of that stuff. And then they realized, okay, so bunker bad, not bunker better, right? So it was very simple. So we kind of left it with, as you know, in the 101 world, it was, if we can pick targets and execute not to go in bunkers, it's probably a good idea. And that was my entire point of the whole day. So that would be a typical constraint or parameter for a play day. That would be one of their less liked days. On a Monday or Tuesday, we'll have wedge challenges on course. We really like to do wedges on course. I've noticed a difference between our proximities and metrics, hitting wedges on a range versus on the course, and there's quite a distinction. So we prefer to do them on course. We might have, favorites, it's scoring parameters, right? Whatever metrics that we think are important at that particular moment in time, whether it be tournament we're playing next week or based on our week stats, whatever it may be. And that's my job after each practice from 6 o'clock until the next morning before I send out the note for that day is to try and figure out what we need to do to set up the environment that day.
That was good. Got a lot out of that. As I mentioned earlier, my typical day, a non-playing day, revolves around our banks. They kind of know what some of the stuff that they need to work on based on their own personal system of monitoring those banks. So, I don't get all 14 together and say we're trying to hit low shots today or we're going to work on drivers today. I think that's highly inefficient. So we break off in pods, and there might be a bunker pod one day. There might be, getting out of trouble pod one day. And I'm not afraid to mix it up. Sometimes they go out with somebody from the opposite team, a couple girls, couple guys, they go play some games, and it really revolves around skill building, but trying to also accomplish what they're trying to do that day. So for instance, had a girl make a couple doubles a few weeks ago, late in the day, and she said, I just kind of hit my drive to the right a little bit on a few holes, and I had to hit under some trees, and I just can't hit a ball low under a tree. I don't know why. I don't know what's going on. So it created some games, that constraint-based games, parameter games, where, you self-discovery, like she didn't really know how she started hitting it low, but after about 20 balls into the tree, like she started adjusting, making some adjustments, and just self-learning there, self-organizing movements and club angles without me sitting there talking about shaft lean and lofts and this and angles and physics and how you make a ball go low. Me sitting there educating, thinking I know, everything. It's not about that. It's like we made it really fun. Took the shag bag, premium golf balls, same ball we play with, and just old fashioned way, man. There's a big old branch there, and she just started getting under it, and she was like, I feel it, and it wasn't like. And then I kind of explained it a little bit towards the end in retrospect, what creates that low shot, what I saw, so she kind of knows what creates that ball flight. But that's towards the end. There's no technical talk during the day, but stuff like that. I like what Thomas was talking about. We do a lot of skill building games. Where are we lacking? Where do we need improvement? Our banks tell us that. We monitor it daily. Like any other financial institution, we're making deposits every single day, more deposits than withdrawals, aggregation of marginal gains, like Thomas said, and it does add up. You don't notice. So let's say somebody wants to become better between 10 and 25 yards around the green from fairway conditions. You don't notice the work day 1, day 2, maybe even day 3, maybe even day 5, but day 30, wow. It's like you're a game changer. It's a game changer now. You're really good at this. And they see it, they see that it's little pieces. And that to me is a big part of it. So we spend our time monitoring our banks, creating practice plans based on the overall blueprint of what we're trying to do. Every player knows what bank it needs some deposits, and like I said, it's technical, it's physical, mental, and strategic or tactical. And so we spend our time doing that. I'm going to backtrack a little bit on the communication aspect of it during the week. It's really hard for them. They don't answer my phone calls. It's like I'm calling somebody and I'm like, I need to talk to you about something. They don't answer. They don't like to talk on the phone. And Thomas, I don't know about you, but when we get done with a round of golf and they're in the van and they're decompressing, what's the first thing they got?
Mm-hmm.
So I had to go out and search and tailor my communication with each player, college or the high school club player. How can I get in their ear and make sure that I get what I need to tell them to them fast and quick, like you said, not this long drawn out thing. So I found an app called Band about 3 years ago. And right now I've probably got about 8 players on it. Well, where's my camera? You won't be able to see that. But anyways, it's kind of like a Facebook interface, and it's individualized. Every player I have is on this. And I can just kind of post stuff to them personally, information I need them to have. what we're doing on Wednesdays. And then it has a live chat feature. So essentially it's like they're on social media talking to their coach. So they'll do this, but they will not answer your phone call. So during the week, this is an important piece for me. And just remind them of stuff that we've got to do. And that's the organizational aspect that we're talking about with 14, 15, 16 players during the week. It's, we don't just put them all on the range and say, today we're working on hitting fairways. Everybody get your driver out. Let's pound balls. No, it's highly specific. Yeah. It's highly skill building to me, I think in season, high skill building with little technical kind of seems to work best for me during the week. Like, we're working on curvature of the ball. Well, we're going to create some scenarios where they need to curve the ball and get a kind of a non-technical feeling of face to path. Let's say that, and working on that. And then they hit a few draws and they're like, wow, that felt interesting. I just asked you to hit around this tree. That's all I asked you to do. And you did it. So yes, you can draw the ball. And they get these feels and they're like, oh, wow. But the challenge sometimes with the college players, guys, is that they have coaches back home as well. So some of them are highly technical, and then you come in here and have them just hit around a tree, and they're like, I don't think that's like going to do it. I need to talk to my coach, and there's got to be something that I got to do here, swing wise. I got to have a swing feeling. I'm like, so we're constantly bridging that stuff, highly skill building stuff with the least amount of technical possible. Creating games is really important to me. Yeah. I've had 9 holes where if you hit it in a bunker, every hole you play that you don't hit it in a bunker, let's say it's a course with a lot of sand and I need them to really work on their technical banks that week, the game will be staying out of bunkers, choose different angles, choose different flights, get it around this stuff, and you'll be highly penalized. Instead of score, par, bogey, double, it's I scored because I wasn't in the sand on this hole. And if you play the hole without hitting it in a bunker, you get X amount of points. You can make up whatever you want, creativity. But that type of stuff is huge because when you get them in that environment, they have a little more fun, and there's less coaching, and there's more learning, and there's more skill building without a TrackMan or without this or that. But then there's some funny stuff that happens. There is a big club fitting component too. Most of these kids show up or they'll buy stuff over Christmas break that they picked up somewhere. And it's like, okay, we got to do an equipment check. So once a month we do an equipment check. When it comes, so we'll pick a day. I won't get deep into that, but that's super important. You're trying to build skills with the wrong tool. I see that a lot in college golf. That's kind of, so it's just those 4 banks. Our week is those 4 banks and going and getting with every kid with our communication piece. And then after the round is over or the practice is over, I may be already working at the club. So their favorite little communication deal. I'm not going to call team meetings because they hate them.
Yep.
So all that put together is kind of what we do on a weekly basis. And that's all I got. So, Alan, I think I saw some questions from people. Can we hit some of those before we go?
Yeah, so I was going to tie it together so Alan Woolley's question was, how do you touch on can you touch on communication with parents, both high school and college? I want to take that even farther. How about the entire loop for that athlete? So you're usually going to have probably a home coach. You're going to have parents, possibly site coaches or whatever. So how do you manage that whole loop with obviously parents being a big piece of that?
So on the high school level, Alan, most of you guys that work with high school players, that they have expectations, they have a main goal of playing college golf for the most part, right? So they come to you, they pay you, for a roadmap, let's say per se, and then they get into your programs and they want to play D1 golf, and this is the place to go. And so what I see is that parents have really poor expectations for the most part of what it takes and how it works. And they just don't know, man. It's a really tough piece for me, especially on the high school level. And in my case, and many of your cases on this call, you work at a private club. They're your bosses per se. You can't exactly just say, look, this is, so you got to be real careful in that sense. In the college environment, it's a little bit different, but I won't get into that now. But with the high school player, I think once a parent understands the plan, whether it's the bank system or whether it's something that Access comes together with, stuff that you got, Alan. The conversation happens where you educate them on the true process. You're very transparent. You don't say they're going to be D1 players if you pay me $1,500. It's like, this is what goes with it, and I take it very serious. And this is the process. This is the plan. It's not a lesson. This is a long-term deal. There's a lot of patience involved. And more often than not, parents go away with those honest conversations thinking that they're hurting their kids more than they're helping them. So I find a way to massage that in there, like slowly bleed that in there. And once they know, my goal with the club player is for the parents to know that I have their best interest at heart. And I'm working to build this human being, make him into a college athlete, mentally, physically, with the golf swing stuff, and letting him go out and perform. But most often, we've got to find a way to get parents on the same page with you. And if I 95% of the time when I really sit down with the parents away from the kid, early on in the process and lay it out, and they know what you're doing, and you've got a plan, and you're just not meeting little Johnny every Thursday and putting him on TrackMan and working on his swing, they'll buy in. So, and there's a creativity piece to that too. You start assessing the parent. Division II women's golf. I don't know if Thomas is comfortable saying it, but 9 out of 10 of the girls I get, dads are highly involved. I don't know what it is about Division II women's golf, but it's like they bring their dads to campus. And there's phone calls immediately after rounds. There's phone calls before rounds. So in college, I make it more of a bond and a relationship with the player. And if I do have to have a conversation with the parent, it's more along the lines as, you have trusted me with your high school player, your child, to develop them and make them functional in this world. So you don't need to call them before every round. You don't need to call them after every round. They are learning how to be adults. You're not going to call them on their first day of their job when they get out of school. You might, maybe a little good luck, but don't get highly involved in it, because we're going to go backwards with this thing. And it's just it might be the wrong angle, but it's just brutal honesty, with parents. And they're smart enough sometimes to understand where you're coming from, that you care and you want to make them better, and they'll back off. It's worked for me. Thomas and you may have a different approach, but it's just a lot of transparency and letting them know that you do have a plan, you do have your stuff together, and you do care, and they'll back off. They'll be on your team. Any thoughts on that, Thomas?
Yeah, I honestly, I couldn't reiterate more. Brutal honesty is the fairest way for all parties. But ultimately, in the college world, I get paid for the college player, the college human, not the parent, right? My responsibility is to help an 18 to 22-year-old grow and develop as a human, as a student, and as a golfer. And the parent, we need to rip the cord. And that's very challenging. I have an 8-year-old at home, and I'm looking forward in a few years, and I'm really scared for that, because I'm probably going to be terrible at it as a parent. But I can see it with our parents, where it's tough, right? That's your baby. I get it, but honest, brutal conversations about helping them, and hovering over them is not that. The one piece that I would add is I recruit parents. I really do. And they don't know it. I'm not vocal about it. I don't say a word, but on visits when they come, I have a lot of notes to take away from the parents too. And I have absolutely said no to a kid because of a parent, because I've seen those warning signs. I haven't been brave enough at this point in my career. I want to get to it, to where I in that scenario, I do say no to a kid. I would like to help that kid in the future, even though I said no at this point. I would like to tell the parent, look, they're not coming because of you. But I like I said, I haven't been brave enough in myself to do that yet. But that's a little personal challenge that I would like to get to, because even though I've decided that the future of this kid is not here, I'd still want to, be the coach, be the mentor, be the, halfway decent human being that I like to be. And I look like this is not helping. Right. So, it's difficult. It's very, very difficult. But like I said, the kids, I have one parent right now that is a challenger out of the 14, the other 13, all parents on each side are unbelievable. And it's never going to be utopia, but when we do have that red flag parent, I most definitely keep them at a distance, and I handle the player, the human in front of me, not the parent. Yeah.
That's a difficult question. I mean, it's a tough one.
Yeah, it's ever evolving too, so it's constantly changing. And then, I can imagine how difficult it is, but I think at the end of the day, what both of you are saying is understand the human in front of you first.
Mm-hmm.
Understand what our goals and kind of where we're all trying to head as a collective group. Recognize individually how does that group get there, which is kind of one of the crazy things in golf, right? So you guys are playing a team sport, but yet, I mean, it's an individual sport at the end of the day. So being able to recognize that for each player, I love the human part of it. That's probably the part that fascinates me the most, and it's the part that I know that early in my career I was terrible at. I think most of us get into a place of we go educate, which obviously education is great. We go educate, and we get most of what we're going to educate on is usually technical components. Whereas I know one of the things that Rudy's done great with, and I'm pretty sure Thomas has too, is don't just go educate on your specific technical golf components. Go get educated on everything. And we're lucky enough in Texas that we've got a lot of really crazy smart people outside of our specific golf industry that have massive things to be able to teach us. So going and hanging out with what you would consider a successful person that's managed some big business, man, you talk about managing personalities. For those people, that's what they became geniuses at. A lot of people that have become great in certain avenues of a business actually don't really know much about the technicality of that business, but they're great managers of people and putting people in the right spots in the right environment so that they can do their thing. So if there's one thing that I would urge everybody to do is, well, go figure out who else you could learn from down the street in a completely different business. Keep learning, keep doing everything that you can do. So I know both of these guys have to get going. I really appreciate both Rudy and Thomas being on here. Rudy, Thomas, you guys okay if people contact you directly and ask questions?
100%. Yeah, I feel bad. I feel bad cutting off, but yes, my email is rudy@rggolfinstruction.com. Pretty simple. Or you can just have a website both at the club and a personal one that you can just get my cell phone. Call me on my cell phone. It's all good. Email, whatever you're comfortable with. I'm always here to answer questions. I might have a few questions for you once I get to know what you do. So definitely reach out anytime. If I don't get back to you, I'm working, but I will get back to you, and free to call me anytime, guys. I really appreciate the time for y'all to listen to a few of the things that we do. And thank you again.
Sounds good, Rudy. Appreciate you. Thomas, how did they get a hold of you?
Yeah, likewise. I can share with you about email, social media, all of the above, text, WhatsApp, phone, all of the above. All of those channels are open, so I can share that, and then you can share it with the group. And but yeah, this was a treat. Thank you so much for having me. This was just like with Rudy. This is absolutely not a one-way street here. I love listening. I love learning. I love debating. I love challenging. So please, this is awesome. This is, I have my family life. That's number one. But anything golf and helping other people get better in some fashion this is what I do, man. So this is awesome. I love this stuff. So thank you.
Sounds good. So what we'll do is go ahead, Rudy.
I'll just close. I want to just tell a quick story. Maybe it was 6-7 years ago. We're in downtown Savannah, and you talked about doing something like this. So hats off to you, man, for putting all these things together for our section. Going through the whole Harvey Penick deal this year, I got to meet and understand how much good work is out there in our section from all these guys. And listening to every one of these round talks has been awesome. So thank you, Alan, for taking the time to do all of this, man. I know we were sitting at that seafood place and you were trying to figure out how to do this, so you did it, and I appreciate that.
Took a bit of time, and it doesn't happen without people like you being in the group that we are. So I appreciate everything you're doing. And what we'll do is we'll get all the contact information for both Rudy and Thomas over to Scott. We'll have Scott email it out to everybody that was on this call. For those that you think might enjoy this, have them get on the website, because Scott will post this on the website for anybody to be able to look at later on. So we'll get all that sent out to everybody. Rudy, Thomas, good luck to your respective teams. Go out there, play well, have some fun, and we'll talk soon. Thanks again.
Thank you so
much. Guys. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.